Extra question 15. When a close object cannot be seen clearly, the defect can be corrected by using a convex lens. Explain how this happens. So here you cannot see the close object clearly, and this can be corrected by using a convex lens. Now then, what is this defect called? It is long sight. So long sight means, what are the causes? This is not the answer, students. I am just writing down the causes. What are the causes? Eyeball being too short or inability to increase the curvature. So, because of that, what happens? The image forms behind the retina. So, if we show that, you can see the image forms behind the retina. So, if it is close objects, you all know those are divergent rays that fall on the lens and they form the image behind the retina so that we cannot see the object. So, what do? We use a biconvex lens or a convex lens. Then what will happen? This is the lens of the eye. So, here we use a biconvex lens. So, the rays that are coming as divergent rays, they get converged onto the eye lens so that the image forms on the retina. So, this is what you all have to explain. So, these are the light rays. So, this is the explanation. You have to write it as the correct answer. So, when the rays from close object converge behind the retina, the image is not clear. When a biconvex lens is used, it converges the divergent rays coming from the close object onto the lens of the eye. The eye lens further converges the rays to form the image on the retina. So, here students, you all have given the complete answer. I will again go back to the answer and we will check it again. So, close objects are not seen clearly, so you know that is long side. The reasons are eyeball being too short or inability to increase the curvature of the lens, of the eye lens. So, when you represent it diagrammatically, this is long side. Here you can see the image forms behind the retina. But when you correct, you can see the divergent rays are converged first and again they converge onto the retina so that the image forms on the retina. So, that is what happens. So, when you are to explain it, this is how you can give the explanation. So, when the rays from close object converge behind the retina, the image is not clear. So, when a biconvex lens is used, it converges the divergent rays coming from the close object onto the lens of the eye. That is how it is corrected. The eye lens further converges the rays to form the image on the retina. So, the close object will be seen clearly. You can even include that point as well. But this is the explanation as to how long sight is corrected. Is that clear to you all, students? I am sure you were also able to write it like this in your own words. So, with that, I will move on to the next question. Extra question 16. When a distant object cannot be seen clearly, the defect can be corrected by using a concave lens. Explain how this happens. So, same as the previous question, we need to explain how the short sight is corrected. So, here you can't see a distant object clearly. So, that means the person has short sight. What are the reasons for short sight? Eyeball being too long, or inability to decrease the curvature of the lens. So, how can you explain the correction? So, again, we can use two diagrams. This is the problem. So, here, what type of rays come from distant objects? Parallel rays. The parallel rays come like this. They fall on the lens and they get converged in front of the retina. So, the image is not clear. So, how do we correct it? We have the eye and here we have the eye. This is the lens of the eye and here we use a concave lens. So, what happens? The parallel rays that are coming from the distant object get diverged onto this. They get diverged onto this eye lens. These are parallel rays coming from distant object. They get diverged first and then they are converged by the eye lens to form the image. So, this is correcting short sight. This is what we have to explain now. So, we can see distant object is not seen clearly because the image is formed in front of the retina by using a concave lens. The parallel rays coming from the distant object is diverged and directed to the eye lens. Then the rays are converged by the lens of the eye onto the retina. So that is how you are able to see the far object clearly. So again, to go through the answer. So if a person can't see distant object clearly, that means they have short sight, and you know the reasons. Eyeball can be too long or the inability to decrease the curvature. So because of that, you can see the image forming in front of the retina. That's corrected using the concave lens. Why? Here this becomes diverged and again gets converged onto the retina. So the explanation that you are required to write is this. Distant object is not seen clearly because the image is formed in front of the retina. By using a concave lens, the parallel rays coming from the distant object is diverged and directed to the eye lens. Then the rays are converged by the lens of the eye onto the retina. So again, as I said before also, you can complete the answer by saying, therefore, you can see the far object or distant object clearly, or you can say the short sight can be corrected using the concave lens. But this is the required explanation that you need to give. I am sure again you also would have written a similar answer that gives all the information. With that, I will move on to the next question. Extra question 17. What is meant by binocular vision? What is it? The ability of observing one object with both eyes, creating a single visual image. That is what we call as the binocular vision. So here, if you write that down, the ability to maintain visual focus on an object with both eyes, creating a single visual image. That is binocular vision. Then write examples of mammals that have binocular vision. What are the examples? You can talk about man, gorilla, chimpanzee, rilava or mandi, and loris. So here we can write all those examples. Man, monkey, Rilava or Mandi, then Loris, chimpanzee and gorilla. So I have written all the mammals that have binocular vision. Then the next one, write example of mammals that do not have the ability to look at the same area with both eyes. So mammals that do not have the ability to look at the same area with both eyes. What are the examples? You can write cat, dog, cow or cattle, then tiger. All those do not have the ability to look at the same object with both eyes. So here we can say cattle, tiger, dog, cat. Any example can be written. What is stereoscopic vision? Due to binocular vision, the ability of our eye to determine the depth of the object or the height of the object. That is known as stereoscopic vision. So we can write that as well. Ability of our eye to determine the depth of an object or the height of an object. So, is that okay, students? Ability of our eye to determine the depth of an object or the height of an object. So, that is what we call as stereoscopic vision. With that, I will move on to the next question. Extra question 18. Write 2 common eye diseases seen in people. What are the 2 common eye diseases seen in people? Cataract and glaucoma. So, here we can say cataract and glaucoma. Write 2 symptoms of sore eyes. What are the symptoms of sore eyes? Secretion of tears and reddening of the eye. So, secretion of tears and reddening of eyes. So, those are the 2 common symptoms of sore eyes. I am sure you were also able to write the answers. With that, I will move on to the next one. What is cataract and how does it occur? What is cataract? The usually transparent lens of the eye becoming opaque, or the opacity of the normally transparent lens of our eye. That is cataract. And how does it occur? Due to the denaturing of protein. So, you can either write both the answers together or you can write them separately. So, for cataract, we can say the opacity of the normally transparent clear eye lens is known as cataract, and this occurs due to the denaturing of the protein of the eye lens. So that is how it occurs. And what factors cause cataract? What are the factors that cause cataract? Age, genetics, and also UV radiation. So age is one factor, then genetical factor or or you can say genes, and ultraviolet radiation. You can say ultraviolet or UV radiation. I am sure you were also able to answer all these questions. What is cataract? The opacity of the normally transparent clear eye lens is known as cataract. And this occurs due to the denaturing of the protein of the eye lens. And the factors that cause cataract are age, genetical factors or genes, and ultraviolet radiation. With that, I will move on to the next one. Extra question 20. What is glaucoma? You all know the answer to these, students. What is glaucoma? The reduction in the visual range of a person due to the damage caused to the optic nerve. So that is the disorder that is known as glaucoma. So we have to write that answer. Reduction in visual range of a person that can eventually lead to blindness due to damage caused to the optic nerve. So you all know what this condition is. Then the next question. What is the main cause of glaucoma? What is it? The high blood pressure or the increased blood pressure in the eye. So here we can say high or increased blood pressure in the eye. So that leads to glaucoma or that causes glaucoma. Who has the increased risk of glaucoma? That you all know. People with diabetes or diabetic patients have the increased risk of glaucoma. So, people with diabetes. Have the increased risk of glaucoma. So, those are the questions. What is glaucoma? Reduction in visual range of a person that can eventually lead to blindness due to damage caused to the optic nerve. Then what is the main cause of glaucoma? High or increased blood pressure in the eye. And who has the increased risk of glaucoma? People with diabetes. I am sure you were also able to answer all these questions correctly. With that, I will move on to the next question. Extra question 21. Write 3 precautionary measures that should be followed to prevent health problems and possible defects of the eye. What are the precautionary measures? You should not look at the sun directly. You should not put any medicines into your eye without medical advice. And also you should not wear other people's spectacles. and you should take precaution to cover your eyes. You may use sunglasses or sunshade, sun protection in order to protect your eye from harmful radiations. And also you should not point any lights into your eye. Like that, you can write any 3 precautions. Write 3 precautionary measures that should be followed to prevent health problems and possible defects of the eye. So I can write the first one as do not look at bright sunlight directly. And this also, especially when there is solar eclipse, you should not look at the sun then. Then we can say do not use any medicine to the eye without proper medical advice. Then we can say do not use another person's spectacles. So these are 3 preventive measures. I am sure you can write many more preventive measures as well. With that, I will move on to the next one. Extra question 22. Mark the sentences given below as true or false. Eyeballs are fixed to the orbits of the skull. That is correct. The eyeballs are fixed to the orbits of the skull. That statement is true. Light enters the eye through a hole called iris. Is it the iris? No, it is the pupil. So this part is wrong. It should have been the pupil. Optic nerve carries the visual stimulus of the inverted image formed on the retina of the eye to the brain. That is correct. Optic nerve is the one that carries the visual stimulus and the image formed on the retina is inverted. So that is correct. The inverted image formed on the retina is interpreted as an upright image by the brain. That statement is also correct. Although an inverted image is formed, it is interpreted as the correct image. Parallel beam of light converges onto the focus of a concave lens. That is also correct. Parallel beam of light converge onto the focus of a lens. We will move on to the rest. The distance between the eye lens and the retina can be changed. Can we change the distance? No, we cannot change the distance. So that is false. That is why the curvature of the eye lens can be changed in order to observe close object and distant objects. Next one. The ability to maintain visual focus on an object with both eyes, creating a single visual image, is known as binocular vision. That is correct. That is the explanation or definition for binocular vision. Then the 8th one. Light rays coming from an object can be focused properly on the retina even if the eye lens is opaque. That is wrong. If the eye lens is opaque, that is the condition that is known as cataract. So then the image doesn't form clearly because the light rays do not focus properly. They get dispersed. So this statement is false. Gradual reduction in the visual range of the eye and the eventual blindness due to the damage of the optic nerve is known as glaucoma. That is also correct. That's the explanation for glaucoma. Gradual reduction in the visual range of the eye and the eventual blindness due to the damage of the optic nerve is known as glaucoma. That is correct. Then the 10th one. Ear is a sensory organ that perceives auditory senses. That is correct. Ear is a sensory organ that perceives sensory organs. So, I am sure you were able to get all these statements as correct or false. So, I am sure you got them correctly. With that, I will move on to the next slide. Extra question 23. Fill in the blanks using the words given within brackets. So, you are used to these type of questions. And here we look at the answers. Incus, you know it is a nosicle that is present in the middle ear. Then semicircular canals, earlobe, intensity, audible range, eustachian tube, malleus, that is also a nosicle, tympanic membrane, cochlea, auditory nerve, ossicles and stapes. So, the first one is a cartilaginous structure. What is a cartilaginous structure? The earlobe. Earlobe is a cartilaginous structure. That is why we are able to bend the earlobe. The three ossicles present in the middle ear are incus, stapes and here you can see malleus. You can write it in a different order also because it's according to this incus, malleus and stapes. That is also correct. Then pinna, external auditory canal and the blank membrane belong to the external ear. What membrane? The tympanic membrane. So, pinna, external auditory canal and the tympanic membrane. Membrane belong to the external ear. That is correct. Then the next one. Controls the pressure on either sides of the tympanic membrane. What controls the pressure? The eustachian tube. Eustachian tube. Fifth one, blank contributes to maintain the balance of body. What contributes to maintain the balance of body? It is the semicircular canals. So, here it has to be semicircular canals. Canals contribute to maintain the balance of body. So, let's look at the answers again. Earlobe is a cartilaginous structure. The three ossicles present in the middle ear are incus, stapes and malleus. Pinna, external auditory canal and the tympanic membrane belong to the external ear. Eustachian tube controls the pressure on either sides of the tympanic membrane and semicircular canals contribute to maintain the balance of the body. With that, we'll move on to the rest of the questions. The sixth one takes the auditory senses to the relevant part of the brain, that is the auditory nerve. Auditory nerve. Then the next one, transmit auditory senses to the auditory nerve. What transmits auditory senses? The cochlea. The cochlea transmits auditory senses to the auditory nerve. Then hardening of blank causes a defect in the ear. Hardening of what? Ossicles. Hardening of ossicles. Ossicles causes a defect in the ear. 20 Hz to 20,000 Hz is known as the audible range of the human ear. There you can see audible range. There is a limited what? Intensity. You can see on the first line, intensity of sound that can be tolerated by the human ear. So, intensity. If we look at the sentences again, auditory nerve takes the auditory senses to the relevant part of the brain. Cochlea transmits auditory senses to the auditory nerve. Hardening of ossicles cause a defect in the ear. 20 Hz to 20,000 Hz is known as the audible range of the human ear, and there is a limited intensity of sound that can be tolerated by the human ear. I am sure you were also able to fill them correctly. So with that, we will move on to the next question. Extra question 24. Label the parts of an ear given below. So here all the parts are shown to you. You need to label them. So here you can see the three main parts: the outer ear, middle ear and inner ear. So we will have to write it as outer ear, then middle ear and inner ear. In that, what is this? A is pinna, or you can write it as ear lobe. You can use any term. What is B? External auditory canal. B is external auditory canal. What about C? C is the tympanic membrane. Tympanic membrane. Then what is D? D is the eustachian tube. Eustachian tube. E, you can see, is the cochlea. F, auditory nerve. And H, they are the semicircular canals. Circular canals. And G are the three ossicles. So here, ossicles. Students, you can even write the names near the letters, or you can write the letters separately like a list and write all the parts of the ear. I wrote it here so that it's easy for you to look at the parts. Both ways are correct. So now we have labeled all the parts. Pinna or earlobe, this part. Then the external auditory canal, this. Tympanic membrane. Then we have the ossicles here. Then the semicircular canal. So the ossicles and semicircular canal belong to the middle ear. These three, pinna or earlobe, external auditory canal and tympanic membrane, belong to the outer ear. And the rest of the parts, that is the auditory nerve, cochlea and the eustachian tube, they belong to the inner ear. So I am sure you are familiar with this diagram and you were able to write them, label them correctly. With that, I will move on to the next one. Extra question 25. Briefly explain how ear perceives auditory senses. How do we perceive auditory senses? The sound is directed into the ear by the earlobe or the pinna. Then it travels through the external auditory canal. According to the sound, the tympanic membrane starts to vibrate and the vibration is passed on to the ossicles. They vibrate and the vibration is again given to the cochlea. And from the cochlea, auditory senses are given to the auditory nerve. That is how ear perceives auditory senses. So that is what you need to write here as well. Sound waves are directed into the ear by the pinna. Then they travel, or we can say they are transmitted through the external auditory canal to the tympanic membrane. This vibrates and transmits the sound to ossicles. Then the stimulus, or we can say sound is received by the cochlea and transmitted to the auditory nerve. So that is how sound is perceived by the ear. Then the next question. What is the unit used to specify the audible range of the human ear? What is the unit? It is hertz. So you can write the symbol as hertz or you can write it as hertz. Always remember, students, you have to use capital H. Why? Because it is a name of a scientist. What is the audible range of the human ear? What is it? 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz. So 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz. So I am sure you were also able to answer these questions correctly. With that, the last question, extra question 26. Extra question 26. Write the defects of the ear. What are the defects of the ear? Deafness, impaired hearing and hardening of ossicles. So you have to write those three defects. Deafness, impaired hearing and hardening of ossicles. Those are the defects of the ear. Then write 3 necessary precautions that should be taken to protect the ear. What are the necessary precautions? You should not insert any foreign objects into the ear. You should not put any medicine into the ear without doctor's advice or medical advice. And you should take enough precaution or proper safety gear before diving. And also you should avoid listening to very loud music for a long period of time. And also you should avoid slapping on the ear or pulling by the earlobe. All these have to be avoided. So you can write any 3 necessary precautions that should be taken to protect the ear. So I will say first one, avoid inserting any object into the ear. Then do not use any medicine for the ear without proper medical advice. And also do not slap the ear or pull the earlobe. So like this, you can write any 3 precautions that you should take to protect the ear. So I am sure you were also able to write these, and you can write any other precautionary measure as well. So with that, students, I have completed this lesson. That is the second lesson of your grade 9 science textbook, Eye and Ear. So under that, we discussed the structure and the functions of the eye and the defects related to the eye, as well as the structure and function of the ear and the defects of the ear. So I'm sure with that knowledge, you should be able to care for the health of your eye as well as your ear, because you know how important these 2 sensory organs are. So with that, you have to practice more questions so that you will be able to answer any type of question easily.